Normally on this channel, the actual justice warrior, I, Sean Fitzgerald, the owner, content creator, and captain of this vessel, look for stories that happen across the nation that are indicative of overall policy failures. I, Sean Fitzgerald, owner, content creator, and leader of this movement, the AJW movement, try to guide you to policy solutions, and I try to steer clear from local news stories that are just kind of crazy, just for the fact that they're insane. Well, here's the thing. Today is not one of those stories. Today I found something that is so insane, so maddening, so crazy that I think it deserves some attention just based on the insanity involved in this story. So if you're looking for an overall broader policy solution, that's not what we're going to cover today. That being said, this video is sponsored, so let me toss it to the sponsor, then we'll talk about this crazy story on the other side. Ever wonder how seemingly overnight this channel transitioned from a maybe 2-3 times a week kind of YouTube channel to posting basically daily? Well, I'll let you in on a little bit of a secret. I actually have been cheating. Now, I used to use the traditional ways that you're all familiar with. You wake up, you have coffee, you drink it a bunch, you use that caffeine energy in order to operate and do your job in a semi-productive way. Then I'd crash at night, get horrible sleep, wake up, do the same thing. However, now what I like to use is C60 Evo. This amazing formulation, which comes in a variety of different things, can help me boost my energy naturally. Now, my favorite product from C60 Evo still is this olive oil energy supplement. It actually gives me the energy throughout the day from just a teaspoon a day, and guess what? It doesn't disrupt my sleep. And the great thing about C60 Evo is that it's all organic. It's all good stuff, pure ingredients, and they have a variety of different products, including anti-aging products, to help you get through the day. On top of that, you can support this channel by supporting C60 Evo. If you go to c60evo.com/AJW and use promo code AJW, not only will you receive a discount, but on top of that, you'll be supporting me and boosting your energy. Check out their products. They have some amazing anti-aging facial stuff. I definitely recommend one drop a day on the skin, restores that youthful glow. That is c60evo.com/AJW. Use promo code AJW for a very special discount.
We are continuing our coverage of the woman accused of killing her landlord, hiding his body, and renting out rooms in his home.
So first things first, and I need to make this clear, and I need to say this because I know you out there will be commenting this in the comments of this video. Yes, this is the same reporter from Houston that I had previously told you was attractive, and I don't want to be flooded with comments related to her appearance. We respect women on this channel, and you should respect women. And of course, I'm specifically talking to you, Clinton. You know what you're doing, you know what you're thinking, and I need you to stop doing that and stop thinking that.
It's one of those stories that just makes you go, what is happening? Now, that woman says that the suspect actually offered her a discount if she cleaned different floors in the home. When she started cleaning, though, she found some of that crime scene, which included large bins filled with blood, and the further she got, the more she continued to uncover a really shocking and gruesome scene here.
So this story is pretty much straightforward, except for everything that happened after the kill, after the murder. You have a woman. She was a tenant in a rental property. For whatever reason, maybe she was trying to forward the communist revolution, maybe she was a fan of Cenk's nephew.
Well, my understanding is that the property owners who have properties there choose just not to rent it at all.
Yeah, kill them. Kill those motherfuckers in a video game. Sorry. Holy shit. Murder those motherfuckers in the street. Let the streets soak in their red capitalist bloods, dude. Oh my god, in a video.
Decided to kill her landlord. However, much like many communists throughout history, rather than freeing the property for the people, rather than having a revolution, rather than saving the working people and standing up to the bourgeoisie, what actually happened is she then assumed the role as the landlord and began renting out the available space in order to have extra money, according to the police, according to the documents filed in the court. During the course of the time that she decided to rent this property out to other people, she offered one woman, the woman that is the subject of today's video, a discount if she also cleaned the rest of the apartment as a part of her tenancy. During this course of time, this woman discovered that the murder took place there, was cleaning a crime scene, and while I am impressed that she ultimately ended up acting in such a way that led to an arrest, I have to be perfectly honest, it took her a really long time to figure out that this was a problem, and her threat assessment very off in my opinion.
She basically killed this man, took over his house, and was living life like she was, the queen for quite a while.
In July of 2021, Tabitha Pope says 43-year-old Pamela Ann Merritt rented out a room to her that was inside of a home located at 605 West Clay Street in Houston. She claims Pamela told her the rent would be lowered if she cleaned the second and third floors of the home. All Tabitha knew at the time was that the owner of the home, 78-year-old Colin Kurdachi, hadn't been seen since February 15th, 2021.
So I just want to take note of something. I want to highlight something. I want to emphasize something in case you're confused, in case you don't understand what's going on. Because in the B-roll of this footage, you're seeing the woman at the subject of this story actually walking up and entering on the second floor. So you might think the local news staged this or something like that. But here's the thing. When I bring you a story that's ridiculous in every possible way, the story is ridiculous in every possible way. The reason that she's going up into the building is because even though this was a murder scene, even though they ended up arresting the person who was posing as the landlord, she still lives here rent-free because who can beat a discount? I'm not joking about that.
Very suspicious because the way their stories kept changing.
When Tabitha started cleaning the second floor, she found bins filled with blood that were hidden in a crawl space.
Now, I will also add that this woman is like, well, it's very suspicious. However, this is something that she's saying in hindsight, because when you think about her behavior, when you document her actions in a step-by-step way, you realize that her suspicion meter a little bit broken. You realize that her ability to detect threats slightly off, slightly ajar, because every action that she took posts, obviously when you out there in the audience would realize that you're in a murder scene, would indicate that she has no ability to discern something unless it is blatantly obvious in her face.
It just smelled like death.
And when she asked what it was, she says Pamela told her it was from rotten meat that had went bad during the freeze. But when Tabitha made it to the third floor, where Kurdachi lived prior to his disappearance,
There was blood on the, splatters on the wall. There was, coagulated blood on the floor, throughout the room. On his bed, there was a big spot of blood.
that was on October 2nd, 2021. Tabitha called police.
You see, this is exactly what I'm talking about. The local news is just going over her story as if it is normal, but again, think about what you're hearing. This woman is hired to clean. She goes into a place. It's obviously a crime scene. I don't know if you guys are aware of this. They find bins full of blood. It smells like death, almost as if the missing landlord that she knows has been missing for a long time was murdered here. However, they convince her that rotten meat was stored in bins, and for some reason, it is sensible to put those bins in a crawl space on the second floor, and this woman, our hero of today's story, completely by accident, decides to continue and move on to clean the third floor. Now, I will say, at this point in time, I think the perpetrator in this case wants to get caught. These actions are so obvious, indicating that you don't care about your life, you feel like you've gotten away with this murder and all of that. However, this woman in particular, the woman who is supposed to lead to the capture, did not want to fulfill her role and help the people that clearly and obviously wanted to get caught. She continued to clean.
On his bed, there was a big spot of blood.
That was on October 2nd, 2021. Tabitha called police. Officers came, took pictures, and then left.
Basically, they said no body, no crime.
Now look, I promise you that there would be no serious broader policy implications here, but if you're the police force and you have a guy that's been missing for a long time, some random woman who is a former tenant of that person is renting out the property to people and paying somebody to clean up a bunch of blood stains. You go into a third floor, you see a giant blood stain on the bed, you hear about the bins, it smells like death, and you think to yourself, you know what? No body, no crime. We're going to take some pictures and then pack it in, boys. We need to go out and grab ourselves some donuts. You're horrible police officers. You're horrible detectives. You're an embarrassment to policing. And honestly, you kind of deserve to be removed from the force. This was a pitiful performance by law enforcement. However, the main character of our show, the hero, the reluctant, non-threat assessing hero of our episode, is going to progress, go forward, and eventually solve this whole case by happenstance while also dodging a potential murder, and that potential murder would be if the killer actually didn't want to get caught and decided that they were going to go after the person that is slowly, and I mean excruciatingly slowly, uncovering the murder that was committed on this property.
But on December 6th, 2 months later, Tabitha found a body.
I was back here under the stairs.
The skeletal remains of Cardaci were found in the backyard. He'd been stabbed to death, and Tabitha says Pamela Merritt actually led her right to his remains.
I had mentioned to her that if they found Colin's body somewhere, then it wouldn't be a foreclosure. 2 days after that is when they let slip something about the dog corpse under the stairs. She's like, "Oh, you want to see it?" And then she got all like peppy, and I was like, "Sure." And she like didn't just skip to the backyard. She stops, and her face just, there it is, and turns around and walks away.
So again, this story gets incredibly strange, incredibly weird, and this is where I think that this person ultimately ended up wanting to be caught for this homicide. The guilt weighed on them, they couldn't handle it anymore, and thus, little by little, they revealed the truth of the crime scene. Maybe, or maybe they actually were concerned and or stupid about the foreclosure, and they thought that they would continue to live there if they found the skeletal remains of the body, which by the way was in the backyard underneath the staircase. Now, I will also add that I criticized the Houston Police Department earlier for their lackluster investigation, for them saying no body, no crime, and I stand by every one of those criticisms. It was in the backyard underneath the stairs. The police maybe would have had to have taken these stairs in order to get up to the 3rd floor, and yet they didn't find the body because they didn't care, because they weren't searching. So for months and months and months, this woman ended up living with the killer, even though she knew that there was a murder going on, and the police were like, well, eventually we're going to develop these photos. We decided to use film because it would take longer, and we're not going to do anything until we have a body or a second body. And I know they're playing eerie music throughout the course of this local news segment, but what they could easily be playing is comedic music, because this is an absolute joke.
So, I mean, I took one look at it and I just knew immediately it was a body.
What went through your mind in that moment?
Oh, she killed him.
Yeah, again, this is what I'm talking about, where we have the blind leading the dumb. It took her until the body was there, not when she discovered the buckets of blood and the smell of death on the 2nd floor, went up to the 3rd floor, saw the crime scene, for her to realize that maybe, just maybe, something was a bit suspicious. Again, not really a bright showing for everybody in Houston right now.
Detectives and crime scene units investigated and removed the remains from the yard. No arrests were made. After they found the body, you still lived here,
Yes.
and so did Pamela,
Yeah.
even though a body had been found.
At that point, I had nowhere else to go.
Look, I'm not a police officer, I'm not a detective, I never took the detective exam, but I'm gonna be perfectly honest with you, I watched each and every episode of USA Psych, so I'm pretty sure I'm smart enough to realize that if a landlord is dead, a tenant that has no connection besides being a tenant to the landlord is living in the house, renting it out to other people, and that tenant asked one of the other tenants and offered them a discount to clean up the obvious crime scene and led that tenant to the body, then likely that tenant is the killer. Again, I haven't watched every episode of Columbo. I'm not an expert on all the detective shows that have ever been released in the history of mankind, but just based on my limited detective experience from watching Sean Spencer of Psych solve crime week after week after week for 7 years, I think that this would be a reasonable conclusion to jump to. I think if I was a police officer and I was looking at the facts of the case, I would at least detain the person for questioning that led somebody to the body and is profiting off the property for 2 years after this person was dead and paid somebody to clean up the crime scene. But the Houston police were like, nah, no big deal, nothing to worry about. You chill out for a couple of months. Girl who reported the police that there was a body there, you could just live there for a little while, continually clean that crime scene for that discount, and we're just gonna act like nothing is out of the norm.
Tabitha says Merritt continued to live in the home until the summer of 2022, more than 1 year after Kurdachi's death. Merritt wasn't officially charged with murder until May of 2023, and on August 18th, officers finally took her into custody.
So again, everything about this story is stupid and insane. This woman continued to live with the killer. The police, by the way, and this murder occurred back in February of 2021. They discovered what went down. They ended up issuing a warrant for her arrest in May 2023, only took her into custody August 18th of 2023. That's basically a week ago from the time that I'm recording this video for the police to decide that maybe, just maybe, the obvious killer in this instance should be taken into custody. A very piss poor job by the Houston police, if I'm being perfectly honest. Now, on this channel, I will often defend the police against poor attacks, but let's be honest, let's be serious. You should be able to look at this woman's face and know that she's a killer. I'm not saying anything, but you know what? I just said it. But let's be even more obvious. When all the evidence points in this direction, when you actually have enough to charge months and months ago, and it takes you until a week ago in order to arrest for this obvious homicide, when the person, by the way, has shown at least a pattern of behavior of attempting to clean up a crime scene, you're not doing your job. This story is incredibly stupid and it's incredibly embarrassing. And I know, again, I said I wasn't going to have any broader policy, any actual lesson from this, but I can't help but point out that the Houston PD has had stagnant recruiting, not growing in proportion to the population since the 1990s. So oftentimes they seem to bungle cases just because they don't have the appropriate staff in order to impact and enforce laws in the way that they should. Now, to be clear, in this particular incident, any one of the officers that showed up to the scene of this crime had probable cause to make an arrest at multiple different points. They just kind of refused to act. They kind of refused to force the issue, and I think that is one of the major problems that we're seeing with this case in particular. So there may or may not be broader criminal justice policy implications related to this, but point being, they just don't seem to have any grasp on the situation when it's so obvious. Maybe it was too obvious for them to make an arrest, like they had too much evidence, so they decided it must not be criminal. But if I'm being perfectly honest, that sounds a little bit ridiculous. It sounds a little bit insane. And if I was somebody in and around this area, I'd have some serious questions for the police department, because but for the woman doing everything in her power to make it obvious that she was the killer, and some other woman forcing the issue, it seems like this woman would still be on the streets today.
Yeah, now Tabitha, the woman we spoke with, is actually still living in that home. She hasn't paid rent, though, since Kurdachi's remains were found. She's set to go to eviction court at the end of this month. We'll have her full interview posted on fox26houston.com.
Oh yeah, I wasn't joking about her still living there to this very day, and now fighting the bank who's trying to evict her, and she's refusing to pay rent. So the hero of today's story is actually squatting in the property after the landlord has been discovered dead and the fake landlord has been taken to jail because, you know, that's a normal thing to do in modern American city in the United States of America. Look, I don't know what additionally I can say about this story other than what I said throughout the course of this story, but if you have any thoughts, if you have anything to add, if you have any substance to attach to this crazy, wacky adventure that went down in Houston, let me know down in the comments below. If you like this video, then show me by leaving a like. Subscribe for more content. Follow me on all my social medias. Support me via the support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about the absolute insanity in the city of Houston. Till next time.